So every year at the Florida show, we get together at Benny's on the beach, which is a great treat for all of us because it's downtime. We're not talking about buttons.
So we're all sitting around multiple tables, and everybody's ordering big heaping platters of almond-encrusted French toast and sausage and bacon and various fancy omelets.
And Tom gets a big platter of fruit, and there was a couple pieces of kale on it, and he's eating the kale, and we're looking at him kind of strange, like we've never seen anybody eat this before.
They bring this kale, you know, to decorate every plate. It's the parsley of the 2000s, you know.
And I looked and said, "You really eat that?"
Someone said, "Hey, anybody that's got their kale, why, we're heading it down to the other end of the table." And of course, there was Tom Berg.
So we all start tossing our kale down to Tom.
And soon everybody, all 17 or 18 of us, are passing the kale and handling it as it went by.
Within a couple of maybe 35 to 40 seconds, there were probably 25 to 30 people at the table, and pretty soon Tom's platter is growing, and the pile of kale is literally 10 inches to a foot tall and this big around, and we're just dying laughing. And he ate every single bite of it.
Yeah, Tom Berg was, I thought he'd live to 100. This is a man who knew how to live. He knew how to laugh. He knew how to enjoy himself. He was up every morning. I'd get up to buy a cup of coffee after drinking beer the night before. I'd go up to buy coffee, and Tom was out running circles. And he'd come in sweating at 6:45, weighing 165 pounds. Tom was just in great condition.
I actually met him with I think it was sort of a Hawaiian shirt the first time I met him. Not a gaudy Hawaiian, but just kind of a more relaxed Hawaiian.
First impression of Tom was that this is a real serious guy. You know, I said, this guy doesn't smile. He looks really intense. But once you get to know him, he's like a goofball like the rest of us.
But I think a lot of that was Tom's own persona as a lawyer, where he was very serious in his day-to-day dealings. And so even though this was a hobby to him and it was a release to him, much like many others in the hobby, you have to get to know the person behind the persona. And once you break through that, it's like, oh, that's the real Tom Berg.
The first time I remember meeting Tom, he had taken another gentleman that I knew, Mac McGraw, who had suffered a stroke. He and James Charlevaux took Mac to the National in Louisville in 1987, I believe. And I thought that was really something to sacrifice some of your time to help Mac get around.
We had been working at the Democratic Convention and had been sleeping. There was a bunch of us selling buttons during the convention, so we were just zonked out from having 8 people in a 2-bedroom apartment sleeping on the floor and hardly getting any sleep. And so he was kind enough to invite us to his house after the convention was over and let us sleep in real beds.
We had gone to breakfast. We had neglected to put on our Do Not Disturb sign on the door. And we came back from a local diner breakfast, and all these people were in our room as if we were room hopping, but we weren't there. Tom Berg met us at the door. He said, "Kathy, I know that you'd never leave this room with nobody in it. I came in and there were people around, and I knew that this was not right. So I stayed to make sure that nobody took anything." We didn't know Tom that well at that point in time, but I thought that was one of the most genuine, considerate things I'd ever seen anybody do in the hobby. Like I said, we had just begun to know him, and I think about that story now, and I think, that's Tom Berg.
I went to Regis University here in Denver, and a fellow collector by the name of Aldo Notoriani lived in Denver, and before he passed away, he was going to leave his collection to Regis. And so Regis called around looking for someone to appraise, and apparently they called Tom. And Tom was very busy and couldn't do whatever. And so then they called me because I was a graduate at the school, and I guess Tom had suggested. So unfortunately, Tom couldn't go because he was working. I got an all-expense-paid round trip from New Jersey to Denver to come out and appraise the collection. So thanks, Tom. That was a good one.
So about 3 weeks from the election, middle part of October, he sends me an email that says, "Hey, I found these rare Obama pins in Colorado Springs, and here's a scan of them." And he sent me the scan, and he had gone to the headquarters, and they were nice pins. They weren't super expensive. My mind's going, down the road they're not going to be super rare, but the fact that he had gone out of his way to do that was pretty cool. And then a couple days later, I got another email. He says, I went back, and they had 3 other new ones today, so I got those too. I said, thank you. He must have gone to the headquarters 3 or 4 times. And the funny part was, we don't talk politics, so I don't know what his politics were. He didn't know what mine were, and that's how it is for the majority of folks in the hobby. But I can just imagine if Tom wasn't a fan of Obama, to go into the headquarters 4 times in a short period of time looking for pins. It must have just been hilarious. But, thinking about it over the past few days, it was one of those things where, someone who understood your passion and would go out of his way to maybe go into enemy territory to help you with your passion, that's pretty special. And those people who knew Tom a lot better than I did, a lot longer than I did, I got a taste of how Tom was and helping out a friend. And I can only imagine how lucky they were to have known him that much longer and to experience that. So that's how I'll always remember my friend Tom.
Tom and I were early risers, and so a lot of times we did breakfast together. Sorry.
It's okay.
Wow.
If you don't want any of this in the deal, you don't have to run any.
I didn't anticipate this. So the last time we saw each other was the Michigan show. We went out to breakfast and had our bagels and stuff. We walked around, had a great time. And we laughed about Canton because when we were in Canton last year, we went out for breakfast at this mom and pop place. And Tom says to the waitress, do you have any vegan dishes? And she looked at us kind of funny, and she stepped back, and she tilted her head, and she said, Mr. Spock doesn't work here. And we thought about that for a second, and Tom said, no, I'm sorry, I didn't say Vulcan, I said vegan. And I mean, and this lady looked at us like we were from that other planet. And we just roared about, so that's my vegan story about Tom.
Well, about 5 years ago, we were having our breakfast on the beach on Friday morning for the South Florida show, and we all went to this pier and this breakfast place, Benny's on the beach, and we're ordering. And Tom, I guess, had been a vegetarian for a long time and had just become a vegan recently at that point. And he says to the waitress, I'd like to have the breakfast burrito, but I'd like it without the scrambled eggs and without the sausage. And she says, so you just want the sauteed vegetable in the tortilla? And Tom says, yes, thank you, except don't bring the tortilla. Weirdest thing in the world.
The next thing I remember, we cooked a plot to go to the Reno show. And we decided that I could fly out better from Colorado Springs to Reno. So I drove over here and we both flew to Reno. But we got in there late and the motel was kind of filled, but they had one room with a double bed, and that's where we wound up. And I was surprised that Tom didn't want to stay there the next night, because I do have a little problem with snoring.
I went to spring training in 2012 in Arizona for the Arizona show. And Tom French and I, who are big Giants fans, are at a Rockies Giants game. And we know Berg's there, we haven't seen him yet. So the Rockies score and Tom gets a phone call, and it's Berg. And Berg's telling him that the Rockies just scored. And we're telling Tom, we're at the same game. We can see the scoreboard, we know what happened. But every time the Rockies would score, Tom would call French up and tell him what the score was. So finally, after the third or fourth time, French said, enough of this garbage, and he just turned his phone off. The Rockies won that game. The Giants won the World Series that year, so Tom had his comeuppance. That was great.
He was my best friend, and we did a lot together in the shows that we went to, and we even had business dealings where we mutually bought collections, and he just loved going around in shows and selling them and publicizing the Denver convention coming up. So,
and Tom, I mean, he's got a great sense of humor. He jokes about everything. Over the past couple of years, it's like, it's amazing, all of the commiserating over, you know, all the problems that come up, and all of the things people say that you just think when you're running a national, it's like, this is the most important thing you need to do, when it's about priority number 853 on the list. So it's like, if you haven't actually done it, it's funny. And seeing Tom's response to some of that was really, really funny, because you get to see the real Tom. This past few months, we probably communicated by phone almost daily, and by email probably 10 times a day. That's how many issues you're dealing with the National. And it was really a passion for him. He really, much like myself, wanted it to succeed, and he wanted it to be a signature.
You know, I've been going to conventions now, apparently, since 1976 in Hartford. And you have people who are promoting their region. Buffalo, they did a great job, but Tom was not to be outdone. I mean, Tom was everywhere, talking about Denver, the convention, it'll be great. And with Ron, and I mean, they were a great twosome, and he was a leader. He was a leader, and he was very understated. I mean, clearly he had points of view, but he could work with anyone. And I think the fact that so many people are here at this convention, and the fact that I think it'll be one of the best conventions ever, will be a lasting tribute to Tom Berg's memory.
It's very difficult. I mean, for me, I just kind of pick up and I want to do everything that I can to make it what he wanted it to be and what I wanted it to be. And it's not so much frustrating for me, but I'm frustrated that he can't see what he was creating and what all of his labor went into. So I certainly wish he can, and in a way, I'm sure he is.
But there's so much to like about Tom Berg. He was a historian, but you know, he used history to meet people. He loved history, but he loved the people behind it more.
So we really need to reach out to younger generations to get more people into the hobby. We have 1,600 people in APIC now. I think we can do better than that. Tom knew we can do better than that.
I think it's a fantastic way to learn about history. Sure, you could collect sport cards, you could collect coins, but there's no collectible that is tied to such an important area of study, and that's political history. It's a great way to learn about politics, it's a great way to learn about history, it's a great way to learn about government, about campaigns, about some of the fascinating parts of history. If you didn't like history, it's a good way to drive up enthusiasm for history and see it firsthand, because you'll be purchasing those very buttons that people wore in those campaigns, whether it was a Lincoln campaign or an Obama campaign. That's how campaigning is done, through political memorabilia, and it's a first-hand experience, and it's a hobby that will allow it's a hobby that has economic aspects to it, because The value of your buttons should grow over time. The value of your other memorabilia should grow over time. So it's a very nice combination. It serves a lot of purposes. It does a lot for the collector, in my opinion.
You know why they picked him for the TV thing, right? You can always tell a Harvard man.
You can't tell him much, though.